Welcome, dear listener, to another quiet journey. Tonight, you and I sit together in the hush of night, where the noise of the world has faded and the mind begins to soften. A small flame flickers gently nearby, its glow steady and kind, like wisdom itself, ancient, patient, waiting for you to notice. For a little while, you may set down the burdens you have carried today. They do not belong to this moment. Here, you are safe. Here, there is only calm. If these journeys into the stillness of history bring you peace, I would ask you now, before your eyes grow too heavy, to like this video and to subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these flames glowing. And I would love to know, where are you listening from tonight? A quiet room of your own. A city that hums even as the night deepens. Or perhaps somewhere under the open sky, where stars stretch endlessly above. Share it if you wish, so others may know they are not alone in the dark. The night is here, and it holds you gently. Feel your body sink into rest. The ground or bed beneath you is steady. Your shoulders soften. Your breath slows. With every inhale, you take in calm. With every exhale, you release what no longer serves you. The world outside can wait. And now, imagine this. In your hands rests a scroll, fragile with age. Its edges worn, its ink faded. Yet when you unroll it, the words shine as though written yesterday. Words of ancient wisdom, quiet and steady, carrying across centuries. They are here to remind you that the answers we search for in the future are often hidden in the past. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your mind drift gently. Tonight, together, we will walk through forgotten scrolls and silent temples. Through voices long gone, yet still speaking. We will see how the calm, patient wisdom of the ancients shaped the world we live in now. And as the fire glows softly, as your breath steadies, as sleep begins to draw close, we begin. What if the secrets to our future are not hidden in tomorrow's technology, not buried in algorithms or machines, but tucked away in yesterday's forgotten scrolls? What if the answers to our restless questions have already been asked? Already been answered? And the wisdom lies waiting, patient and still, in the voices of the ancients. Our modern world moves quickly. Too quickly. We wake to the glow of screens. We measure our lives in deadlines and alarms. We chase novelty as though it were salvation. And yet, beneath all of this, there is a quiet hunger. A longing for something older, slower, steadier. For truths that do not break when the world shakes. Close your eyes and imagine the past, not as silence, but as an immense hall. Its walls are lined with shelves stretching endlessly, filled with scrolls and clay tablets, carved stones, and faded manuscripts. Some of them are cracked, some burned at the edges, some written in scripts we no longer understand. But they hum. Softly, steadily. They hum with answers. Thousands of years ago, a farmer stood at the edge of his field, watching the seasons turn, and wondered about order. He asked, "What makes the sun rise? What makes the rains come? What gives us harvest and famine? Out of that wondering came rituals, prayers, and calendars. Small acts of wisdom that gave calm to a people living at the mercy of the sky. In India, sages sat in forests, their breath slow, their eyes closed, listening not to noise but to silence. They wrote of compassion, of balance, of a cycle greater than themselves. Their words seeded religions and philosophies that still ripple outward today. In Greece, philosophers stood in marketplaces and asked, "What is justice? What is virtue? What is truth?" Their voices stirred argument and laughter, yet their questions built the very foundation of law, of governance, of thought itself. In China, scholars wrote of harmony, of families living in respect, of rulers governing with balance, of humanity flowing in rhythm with nature. Those quiet words shaped dynasties, empires, and daily life for centuries. And in the Middle East, prophets and poets wrote words of law and faith. Carved into stone, recited in chants, whispered in prayer. Their visions shaped nations and moral codes that still echo in our courts, in our books, in our hearts. What if all of this wisdom, was not left behind, but carried quietly into us? Into our systems, our languages, our instincts. What if every modern idea is the shadow of an ancient one, transformed but still alive? The question is not whether ancient wisdom exists. It does. Carved into stone, folded into scrolls, painted on temple walls, carried in songs and chants. The question is, will we listen? Will we allow ourselves to hear the calm voices that do not shout, that do not demand, but simply wait? Voices reminding us that humanity has walked this road of uncertainty before, and survived, and endured, and grown. Breathe slowly now. Feel the weight of that inheritance. Not heavy like a burden, but grounding, steady, reassuring. You are not the first to wonder what the future holds. You are not the first to struggle with chaos, with change, with fear. And you will not be the last. For wisdom is timeless, passed hand to hand, voice to voice, across generations. So let us ask together tonight. What if the wisdom of the ancients, the forgotten calm of old voices, could guide us still? What if, hidden in their questions, are the answers to ours? And so, we listen. Every great river begins as a trickle, a quiet spring hidden in stone. So too did human wisdom begin as small questions, soft reflections, fragile sparks. From these sparks came fire, and from fire, civilization itself. Imagine the earliest humans gathered around their fires at night. The flames flicker against their faces, the shadows dance upon cave walls. They look up to the stars, endless, countless, unblinking, and they wonder, what are those lights? Who placed them there? Do they watch us, or do we watch them? In those questions lay the first seeds of philosophy, of religion, of science. Long before temples rose, before empires stood, there were these whispers of wonder. When agriculture came, humanity changed forever. people no longer wandered endlessly with the seasons. They bent the soil, planted seeds, waited for harvest. And waiting brought time. Time to think, time to ask deeper questions. Communities formed, villages grew, and with them came the need for harmony. How do we share water? How do we divide land? How do we settle quarrels? Out of these practical needs came law, ritual, and governance. The simple act of planting fields gave birth to the larger planting of order. In Mesopotamia, scribes carved codes into stone. Not only rules, but values. An eye for an eye, wrote Hammurabi's law, seeking balance in justice. It was imperfect, but it was structure. It was the first attempt to make fairness something more than chance. In Egypt, priests watched the Nile with careful eyes. They saw the river flood and retreat, flood and retreat. And they shaped a calendar to measure its rhythm. Time itself became predictable. The calm of knowing when the waters would rise allowed them to build temples, to plan harvests, to weave stability into their lives. The river became not only water, but wisdom. In India, sages sat beneath trees, their breath slow, their thoughts turned inward. They asked not only how to live, but why. They spoke of Dharma, of the order of the universe, of the duty of each soul. Their words rippled outward, carried on chants and verses, shaping families, kingdoms, entire civilizations. The calm of meditation became a cornerstone of society. In China, early philosophers observed nature. The cycle of seasons, the balance of yin and yang, the harmony of heaven and earth. They believed that a ruler's power was not simply force, but balance. That society should flow like a river, steady and ordered, rather than clash like storming winds. These insights became the mandate of heaven, the guiding principle of dynasties for millennia. And in Greece, voices rose in the agora, the public square. Socrates asked questions that unsettled his students. What is justice? What is virtue? What is truth? His calm persistence, his refusal to accept easy answers, planted seeds that grew into philosophy, democracy, and rational inquiry. All of these sparks, from Mesopotamia, from Egypt, from India, from China, from Greece, were scattered across the earth. Yet they glowed with the same flame. They asked, how shall we live? How do we create order from chaos? How do we find meaning in the vastness of life? These were not simply intellectual exercises. They were acts of survival. For without order, there was only fear. Without wisdom, there was only conflict. The calm of ritual, the predictability of law, the stability of thought, these were what allowed villages to become cities, cities to become empires, families to become civilizations. Close your eyes now. Imagine yourself in one of those first gatherings. A village has just finished its harvest. People sit together by the fire, their baskets filled, their stomachs content. One elder begins to speak. His voice is slow, steady, like the rhythm of the river nearby. He tells of the gods, of the seasons, of the lessons of the past. The children listen, the parents nod, the fire crackles. In that moment, wisdom is being planted. And like the seeds in the fields, it will grow into something far greater than they can imagine. The genesis of thought was quiet, humble. It was not the shout of kings, but the whisper of farmers, sages, and elders. Yet from those whispers grew the foundations of civilizations. The calm at the heart of human growth. For every temple, every palace, every city that followed began first in thought. And those thoughts, born thousands of years ago, still flow beneath our world today. Unseen, but steady, like roots beneath a vast and ancient tree. Human wisdom does not always survive in words. Scrolls can burn, ink can fade, voices can vanish into the silence of time. But stone endures. Stone remembers. And across the ancient world, people carved their beliefs, their knowledge, their visions into rock and brick, into pyramids and temples, into aqueducts and walls. Their wisdom became architecture, their calm became structure, their dreams became stone. Think first of Egypt. The pyramids rising against the desert sky, vast triangles of stone, each block cut and carried by countless hands. They were not only tombs. They were philosophies written in shape and scale. They declared permanence in a world of shifting sands. They whispered that order could be eternal, that human effort could mirror the stability of the heavens. Beneath their weight lay the calm of planning that spanned lifetimes. For those who built them knew they would never see them finished. Yet they built anyway, leaving behind wisdom carved in stone, patience measured in centuries. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats rose like stairways to the sky. Terraced towers of mud brick, each level smaller than the one below, climbing upward toward heaven. They were more than temples. They embodied the belief that heaven and earth could meet, that the divine could be reached step by step. Their form mirrored the philosophy of their people, ordered, layered, rising from the earthly to the eternal. Each brick, each stair, a meditation in clay. Further west, in Rome, wisdom flowed in arches and aqueducts. The Romans believed not only in conquest, but in order. In water flowing steady, in cities nourished, in roads that stretched like veins across the empire. Their aqueducts, carved from stone and balanced on arches, carried life itself, clear water across valleys and hills, across miles upon miles. These were not simply feats of engineering. They were philosophies in action. The belief that a society's strength came from calm, from stability, from meeting the daily needs of its people. The Greeks too carved their wisdom into stone. Temples of perfect proportion, columns rising in harmony with the eye, geometry translated into architecture. The Parthenon, gleaming on the Athenian hill, was not only a house for a goddess. It was a house for an idea, that beauty lay in balance, that order was sacred, that harmony between part and whole reflected harmony between citizen and state. In China, the Great Wall wound like a dragon across the mountains. Not only a defense, but a philosophy. It declared that borders mattered, that unity required effort, that civilization must be protected from chaos. Yet within the wall were also watchtowers, stations, and gathering places. Reminders that vigilance and community walked hand in hand. The wall was stone given voice. And in the cities of the Indus Valley, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, streets ran in perfect grids, drains carried water beneath homes, wells rose in courtyards. These were not accidents. They reflected a philosophy of order, of hygiene, of life lived in calm predictability. For what greater gift can a society give than the comfort of water flowing, streets clean, homes secure? Stone was silent, yet it spoke. It spoke of patience. For no pyramid, no wall, no temple could be built in haste. It spoke of vision. For such structures were planned across generations, not seasons. It spoke of faith. For to carve into stone was to believe in tomorrow, to believe that the work of today would still matter in centuries. Close your eyes. Imagine standing before one of these marvels. The pyramid rises before you, its shape cutting into the sky. The aqueduct arches above you, water glinting as it flows. The great wall stretches across the horizon, vanishing into the mountains. You place your hand on the stone. It is cool, unyielding, steady. The same stone touched by hands thousands of years ago. Their wisdom, their patience, their calm still hums within it. The echoes in stone remind us that wisdom is not always spoken. Sometimes it is built. Sometimes it is carved. Sometimes it is shaped into structures that outlast even memory. And long after voices have faded, the stones remain, whispering across time. They remind us that the true measure of civilization is not only in conquest or wealth, but in the calm order it leaves behind. A road that endures. A wall that protects. A temple that uplifts. A city that shelters. These are the echoes of ancient wisdom, still standing, still teaching, still reminding us to build not only for today, but for tomorrow. Civilizations were not built only in stone. They were held together by something quieter, something softer. The rhythm of rituals. Small acts repeated again and again, shaping lives with predictability, giving people comfort, anchoring societies in calm. Imagine a village at dawn thousands of years ago. The first light spills across the fields. Smoke rises from hearths as families stir from sleep. The people do not rush. They move with rhythm, with pattern. The farmer scatters grain in furrows as his father once did. The mother lights incense as her mother once did. The children repeat chants, rhymes, prayers taught by elders. These rituals, though simple, wove invisible threads of belonging, reminding each person they were part of something larger, something steady, something enduring. Across cultures, rituals shaped the heartbeat of civilizations. In Egypt, each sunrise was not only a beginning but a rebirth. Priests greeted the dawn with hymns, offering flowers, water, and incense to the gods, ensuring the sun would rise again tomorrow. Daily rituals connected people not only to the divine but to the certainty of nature's cycles. The Nile flooded and retreated, the sun rose and set, and rituals echoed that eternal order. In Mesopotamia, festivals marked the turning of seasons. Entire cities gathered to honor gods with processions, music, and feasts. The New Year festival in Babylon was more than celebration. It was a reaffirmation of cosmic balance. The king himself humbled before the gods, declaring his role as servant, not just ruler. In those rituals, people found calm, knowing their world was not chaos but carefully renewed order. In India, Vedic sacrifices and chants filled the air. Not only offerings of grain or fire, but rituals that mirrored the very structure of the universe. To light the fire was to echo creation itself. To recite the hymn was to sustain cosmic harmony. Even the simplest villager, by repeating prayers, became part of something vast and eternal. Rituals gave dignity, purpose, and calm to lives that might otherwise seem small and fleeting. In China, ancestor rituals were the steady heartbeat of society. Families bowed before tablets, lit incense, offered food. It was not only respect for the dead. It was a philosophy of continuity. A reminder that each life was part of a long chain, flowing backward into memory and forward into hope. These rituals built the harmony Confucius later described, the family as the seed of order for the entire world. In Greece, civic rituals bound cities together. Theatre festivals in Athens were not just entertainment. They were sacred offerings to Dionysus, shared experiences that taught lessons of tragedy, comedy, justice, and fate. The entire polis, citizens, slaves, foreigners, sat beneath the same sky, listening to stories that reflected their own struggles and ideals. Ritual became philosophy made flesh. And in Rome, rituals marked every act of life. Before meals, before battles, before contracts, before journeys. Each prayer, each libation, each offering was small, yet together they created a web of certainty. They told Romans, "The gods are with you, the world has order, nothing is random." Rituals were also practical. Calendars grew from them. Festivals aligned with harvests, with solstices, with rains. By celebrating together, societies also prepared together. Ritual taught not only reverence, but readiness. Close your eyes now. Imagine standing in a temple at dawn. Smoke from incense curls upward, golden light spills through carved doorways, voices chant in low unison. The sound hums through your bones, steady, timeless. You may not know the language, yet the rhythm comforts you. It tells you, you belong. The world has meaning. Tomorrow will come. The rhythm of rituals was the calm at the heart of civilizations. Repeated acts became anchors, giving shape to time, giving peace to minds, giving strength to societies. And though many of those rituals have changed or vanished, their essence remains. In the way we celebrate New Year's, in the way we light candles, in the way we bow our heads, in the way we pause before meals. The wisdom of rituals is simple, but profound. That peace is not always found in grand monuments or great victories. Sometimes it is found in the repetition of small acts, carried across generations, soft as breath, steady as heartbeat. The great gift of humanity is not only to create wisdom, but to share it. And long before printing presses, long before the digital hum of the modern world, ideas themselves traveled along quiet roads, carried on the lips of travelers, scribbled on scrolls, folded into rituals and stories. The movement of knowledge was slower than caravans, slower than ships, but no less enduring. It was not gold that built the deepest bridges between civilizations, but thought. Picture the Silk Road, not only filled with camels heavy with silk and spices, but also with monks carrying sutras wrapped in cloth, scholars traveling with instruments, physicians bringing jars of herbs. They stopped at oases and caravanserai, and when the fires were lit, they shared not only food, but wisdom. A Buddhist monk explained compassion to a Persian trader. An Arab scholar described the movement of stars to a Chinese astronomer. A Greek text, copied into Syriac, then Arabic, then Latin, wandered across the continents, reshaping minds far from its birthplace. Knowledge moved as quietly as smoke, but as powerfully as wind. In India, ideas of medicine and mathematics traveled outward. The concept of zero, so small, so humble, yet so infinite, spread slowly across borders. Ayurvedic practices, herbs, healing diets, balances of body and spirit, found their way into foreign hands. These ideas, once local, became universal, reshaping how entire civilizations measured and healed. In China, the art of papermaking began as a guarded secret. Fragile sheets that could carry thought far more easily than clay or stone. When paper traveled westward, it was more valuable than silk itself. For paper carried wisdom not just once, but again and again. Every copy, every manuscript, every new hand that wrote upon it gave it fresh life. Alongside paper came compasses, gunpowder, porcelain, technologies that transformed distant lands and revealed the quiet power of exchange. In Greece, philosophy and science wandered outward. The works of Aristotle, Plato, Euclid, Galen, carried into Alexandria, translated into Arabic, studied in Baghdad's House of Wisdom, then carried into Europe. Each translation reshaped the words, yet also preserved them. Ideas reborn again and again, flowing like rivers through different lands. In Baghdad, during its golden age, scholars gathered texts from every corner of the known world. Greek philosophy, Indian mathematics, Persian medicine, Chinese astronomy. All were translated, debated, expanded upon. The House of Wisdom became a living Silk Road of thought, where ideas converged like caravans in a courtyard. From there, knowledge traveled to Cordoba, to Venice, to Paris, feeding the roots of the European Renaissance. In Africa, wisdom traveled as well. From the libraries of Timbuktu, where thousands of manuscripts were copied, to the oral traditions of West Africa, where proverbs, stories, and histories were preserved in the memory of griots. Knowledge does not only live in scrolls, it lives in voices. And those voices carried wisdom across deserts as surely as camels did. And in the Americas, though separated by oceans, civilizations exchanged ideas along their own vast networks. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Inca, they shared agricultural techniques, astronomical observations, philosophies of balance between earth and sky. Though the old world and new would not meet for millennia, within each sphere, knowledge flowed across mountains and rivers, proving again that wisdom will always find a way to travel. The quiet revolution of wisdom was that it could leap from one civilization to another and bloom in unexpected soil. The sleep of one culture's knowledge became the awakening of another's innovation. A forgotten manuscript in one land became the foundation of discovery in another. Close your eyes now. Imagine a fire burning in the courtyard of a caravanserai. Around it sit travelers from far lands. Their voices mingle, their gestures fill the gaps where words fail. One draws stars in the sand with a stick, explaining constellations. Another passes around a leaf that heals wounds. Another recites a verse from memory, a truth too beautiful to belong to one people alone. This is how wisdom traveled. Softly, humbly, yet endlessly. The wisdom across continents teaches us this, that knowledge does not belong to one land, one language, one age. It belongs to all. It flows where it is carried, it settles where it is welcomed, it grows where it is nurtured. And because of this, the thoughts of the ancients are never truly lost. They are simply waiting, sleeping, ready to awaken wherever they are needed again. Not all wisdom was carved in stone. Not all ideas were traded in markets or carried in jars of ink. Many lived in the fragile body of a scroll, and in the even more fragile breath of a human voice. The scroll was a miracle of patience. Thin sheets of papyrus, parchment, or paper stitched together, covered with lines of ink drawn carefully by scribes. Each letter a seed, each line a path. A single scroll could carry the thoughts of a philosopher, the prayers of a people, the knowledge of physicians, the laws of kings. Fragile, flammable, easy to lose. And yet it was this fragility that made them precious. People carried them across deserts, hid them in monasteries, copied them by lamplight in the dead of night. To preserve ideas too important to vanish. But where the scroll ended, the voice began. For even before words were written, they were spoken. Wisdom traveled on the lips of storytellers, priests, poets, teachers. Carried not by ink, but by memory. A voice repeating verses, chants, laws, or stories could weave them into the fabric of a people. Children learned through recitation. Crowds gathered to hear epics. Travelers remembered tales long enough to tell them again in distant places. Think of Homer's poems, spoken for centuries before they were written. The Iliad, the Odyssey. Living not in scrolls at first, but in the voices of bards who carried them from city to city, camp to camp. Through their songs, values of honor, cunning, fate, and endurance spread across Greece. Think of the Vedas in India. For centuries, they were preserved not by scrolls, but by voices. Chanted by priests, passed from teacher to student, each syllable memorized with precision. In the sound itself, the wisdom lived. The scroll was unnecessary, because the voice was the scroll. Think of China's Analects of Confucius. A master speaking quietly to his students, his words gathered, remembered, recorded long after his death. His voice, gentle yet firm, became a blueprint for families and empires. Think of the Hebrew prophets, their voices rising in the streets, calling for justice, mercy, faithfulness. Before their words were written, they were cries carried by air, stirring hearts, reshaping communities. Even in Rome, the art of rhetoric was considered wisdom itself. To speak persuasively, calmly, clearly was to wield power greater than steel. For what sword could achieve what a voice could inspire? Cicero's orations echoed louder than armies, changing laws, moving people toward or away from war. And in quieter places, in villages and caravanserai, the storyteller was as vital as the merchant. For through story, values were carried, myths, legends, histories. A child sitting by the fire might hear of heroes, gods, or ancestors, and though he never touched a scroll, he would carry that wisdom in memory his whole life. The scroll and the voice were not rivals. They were companions. The scroll preserved, the voice enlivened. The scroll slept, the voice awakened. Together they ensured that wisdom did not die. Close your eyes now. Imagine sitting in a darkened room, a single lamp glowing, a scroll unfurled on a wooden table. Beside it, a voice begins to read. Slow, steady, rhythmic. The words seem to float in the air, weaving around you, sinking into your mind. The scroll carries the ink, but the voice carries the soul. And together, they carry wisdom across centuries. The scroll and the voice remind us that ideas are alive only when shared. That knowledge is not a possession, but a current. Moving, flowing, carried by hands, carried by tongues, carried by ears. And that even the quietest whisper, once spoken, may outlast empires. Civilizations rose and fell on many things: rivers, harvests, armies, trade. But beneath all of these was something quieter, something invisible, yet more enduring. Law. Not law as we think of it now, filled with codes and courts and paper, but the earliest attempts of humanity to whisper order into the chaos of life. Imagine a village thousands of years ago. The harvest has been gathered, but two families quarrel over water. A fight begins, voices rise, suspicion threatens to divide neighbors. Without rules, without fairness, the village cannot endure. So the elders gather. They speak slowly, carefully. They create an agreement: this much water for you, this much for them. A balance is born. Not perfect, but enough. That balance is the beginning of law. In Mesopotamia, this whisper became stone. Hammurabi, king of Babylon, had his laws carved onto tall pillars for all to see. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Harsh, yes, but steady. It was a declaration that justice should not belong only to the powerful, but to all. The law was no longer a secret in the mouths of kings. It stood in the open, written in stone, whispering fairness across the marketplace, across the fields, across the city gates. In Egypt, law was bound to Maat, the goddess of truth, balance, and cosmic order. Pharaohs declared themselves guardians of this balance. Judges were not only arbitrators, but keepers of harmony between heaven and earth. To break the law was not only to harm another, but to disrupt the very rhythm of the universe. Justice, then, was not punishment alone. It was restoration, the quiet return to balance. In India, Dharma shaped law. A word that meant duty, truth, the right order of things. Dharma was not simply a rule to be followed, but a way to live in harmony with self, with family, with the cosmos. Kings and commoners alike were bound to it. A farmer obeyed Dharma by tending his land with honesty, a ruler by governing with fairness. Law here was not a chain, but a path. A whisper reminding each person where to step. In China, law and morality mingled. Confucius spoke not of punishment, but of virtue. Of rulers leading by example, of families bound by respect. His philosophy whispered that true order came not from fear of punishment, but from harmony within. Later, legalist rulers would carve stricter codes, but even then, the balance between rule and virtue, law and morality, shaped dynasties for centuries. In Rome, law became a mighty river, flowing through senate halls, forums, and provinces. The 12 tables laid the foundation: rights, contracts, responsibilities. Over time, Roman law became one of the most enduring gifts to the world. Even now, echoes of it shape modern governance. It whispered that citizenship itself carried dignity, that to be part of society was to be bound by law and protected by it. And in Hebrew traditions, laws were not only social, but sacred. Carved into tablets, recited as commandments, binding communities together in covenant. They whispered of justice, mercy, holiness. Laws that shaped not only behavior, but spirit. What all of these early systems share is the whisper of law as calm. Laws gave predictability. They turned chaos into order, fear into trust, quarrel into compromise. They allowed people to sleep at night knowing that wrongs would not go unanswered, that fairness, however imperfect, was at least possible. Close your eyes. Imagine walking through an ancient city. At its gate, a stone pillar rises. Carved with words you cannot read, yet you know their purpose. They are there to remind the powerful, to protect the weak, to anchor the community. The pillar is silent, but it whispers, "You are not alone, you are not without protection, you are part of something larger, steadier, enduring." The whisper of laws was one of humanity's earliest acts of wisdom. Fragile, imperfect, often bent or broken. And yet, it gave civilizations their spine. Without it, no city could grow, no market could flourish, no family could feel safe. With it, humanity learned how to live together. And though millennia have passed, its whisper remains. In our courts, in our rights, in our unspoken expectations of fairness. Every time we appeal to justice, we echo the ancient voices carved in stone, sung in temples, written in scrolls. The whisper of laws is the whisper of civilization itself. If the laws of the ancients whispered order into society, then philosophy whispered order into the soul. For civilizations cannot endure only on rules and punishments. They need wisdom that steadies the heart, disciplines the mind, and teaches calm amid storm. Across the East and West, in temples and marketplaces, in forests and lecture halls, philosophies of calm were born. Each unique in its expression, yet all seeking the same balance. In China, Confucius spoke gently of harmony. Not only in politics, but in families, in friendships, in daily life. He taught that respect, ritual, and kindness were the roots of order. That a ruler who led with virtue would need no army to command loyalty. That a son who honored his parents would one day be a father honored in return. His words were simple, but their weight endured for centuries, shaping dynasties, schools, villages. The calm he taught was not withdrawal from the world, but right action within it. And alongside him, Daoist sages whispered another kind of calm. They told of the Tao, the way, flowing through all things like water. They taught that to resist the world was to suffer, but to flow with it was to find peace. The sage does not fight the storm. He bends like bamboo, he yields, and in yielding, he endures. This wisdom, soft and quiet, shaped poets, artists, healers, even emperors who sought the balance of heaven and earth. In India, the Buddha walked the earth, not as a conqueror, but as a seeker of calm. He taught of suffering, yes, but also of its end. Of the middle way between extremes, of compassion for all beings, of the mind's ability to rest in awareness. His followers carried his words along roads and rivers, across mountains and deserts, until they echoed in languages far from his own. The calm of meditation, the wisdom of mindfulness, became one of humanity's greatest gifts to itself. In Greece, a different voice rose. The Stoics. Zeno, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius. They looked at the chaos of politics, of fate, of fortune, and asked, how do we remain steady when the world is not? Their answer was virtue. Courage, wisdom, justice, self-control. If one held to these, the storms of life could not shatter the soul. A king and a slave alike could find peace within themselves. For calm, they taught, is not freedom from hardship, but freedom from being ruled by hardship. Across cultures, the philosophies differed in language, in imagery, in practice. But their heart was the same. They sought calm not as escape, but as strength. They saw that the mind, disciplined and gentle, was the true foundation of a lasting civilization. Think of a ruler in ancient times. Surrounded by advisors, soldiers, wealth, enemies. Yet what guided him in his quietest hours was not the laws outside, but the philosophy within. Confucian texts reminding him of duty. Buddhist chants reminding him of compassion. Stoic meditations reminding him of virtue. These were the unseen anchors of empires. And think of the ordinary person. A farmer in China, repeating rituals of respect. A monk in India, sitting quietly in meditation. A Roman citizen, reflecting on self-discipline as storms of politics swirled around him. They too carried philosophy in their hearts, and in doing so, they carried civilization forward. Close your eyes now. Imagine sitting beneath a tree, the air still, the earth cool. Beside you, scrolls from China, sutras from India, a small wax tablet from Greece. You open one, then another. Each speaks in a different voice, yet the message is the same. Be calm. Be just. Be balanced. Find peace not in conquest, but in the quiet mastery of yourself. The philosophies of calm remind us that civilizations rise and fall not only with armies, but with inner strength. And though thousands of years have passed, these voices still whisper. In therapy sessions that echo Stoic thought. In mindfulness practices that mirror Buddhist calm. In modern ethics that still hold Confucian respect. They remind us that wisdom is timeless. And that to shape the future, we must first master the stillness within ourselves. There are moments in history when wisdom seems to bloom all at once. Not in one land alone, but across continents, as if the earth itself were breathing new thought into humanity. Historians call it the Axial Age. An era, roughly 2.5 millennia ago, when voices rose in Greece, in India, in China, in Persia. Voices that questioned, that sought, that shaped the future with quiet power. Imagine the world then. Kingdoms rose and fell, wars thundered, temples rose like mountains. Yet in the midst of all this noise, a quieter revolution unfolded. Not in battlefields, but in minds. Not in weapons, but in words. Teachers walked, spoke, wrote, planting seeds that would outlast empires. In China, Confucius walked from court to court, seeking rulers who might listen. He carried no sword, only scrolls, and a belief that harmony was the foundation of strength. He taught that rulers should lead by example, that respect between father and son was the seed of respect between ruler and subject. His students wrote down his words, and those words became the heartbeat of Chinese civilization. His voice, gentle but firm, still echoes in classrooms, in families, in the fabric of societies that value order and respect. At the same time, in those same lands, Laozi is said to have withdrawn from the world. Riding westward on an ox, leaving behind only a small book, the Tao Te Ching. A whisper of wisdom that spoke not of duty, but of flow. Be like water, he said. Gentle, yielding, yet stronger than stone. His words taught that to rule was not to command, but to align with the natural order. His legacy was not armies or laws, but verses short as breaths, deep as rivers. In India, the Buddha left behind his palace and wandered. Barefoot, bowl in hand, eyes open to suffering. He sat beneath a Bodhi tree, vowing not to rise until he found a way beyond sorrow. And when he rose, he carried not wealth or conquest, but the Eightfold Path: right thought, right speech, right action. A way of living that promised freedom from suffering. His followers carried his teachings along roads and rivers, until his calm became the calm of millions. In Greece, Socrates walked the streets of Athens, speaking not with sermons but with questions. He asked, "What is justice? What is virtue? What is the good life?" He refused to claim wisdom, saying only that he knew he did not know. Yet in his refusal, he taught others to seek, to question, to think. His voice was so unsettling that the city silenced him with hemlock. But his student Plato, and Plato's student Aristotle, carried his questions forward. Their philosophies became the bedrock of Western thought. And in Persia, Zoroaster's voice had already whispered of good and evil, of a cosmic struggle between light and darkness. He taught that humans had a role to play in this struggle, that our choices mattered, that truth and falsehood were forces that shaped the universe. His teachings influenced Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Echoes that still shape the way we think about morality, about destiny, about responsibility. These teachers never met one another. They did not sit together, did not debate in the same halls. And yet, their voices rose within the same era, like stars appearing at once across the sky. Their words traveled through time, carried in scrolls, in chants, in whispers, in translations. Close your eyes. Imagine walking a long road at night. Along the way, you meet these teachers, one by one. Confucius nods, reminding you to honor your family, to act with respect. Laozi smiles, telling you to flow like water. The Buddha sits beneath a tree, inviting you to breathe, to let go of suffering. Socrates asks you a question you cannot answer, but that you cannot forget. Zoroaster lifts a flame, urging you to choose truth over falsehood. Each voice different, yet together they form a chorus. A symphony of wisdom born in one age, shaping every age after. The Axial Age was not loud. It was not written in conquest. It was written in calm, in thought, in teaching. It was a revolution not of armies, but of questions. And though empires rose and fell around them, the words of these teachers endured. They remind us that wisdom is not the possession of one people, one time, one place. It is the inheritance of all humanity. And tonight, as you rest, their voices walk beside you still. When we think of science today, we imagine laboratories bright with light, screens glowing, instruments precise. But in the beginning, science was something quieter. It was not machines or microscopes. It was eyes lifted to the sky, hands tracing patterns in sand, breath slowed enough to notice the rhythm of the world. Science was serenity. Imagine an ancient astronomer standing alone at night. The desert around him is silent, the stars countless above. He waits. Watches. Notes the way one star drifts eastward a little each night. The way the moon waxes and wanes like a silver breath. He feels no rush. For to measure the heavens is to accept patience. Only calm observation can reveal the truth. In Mesopotamia, this serenity gave birth to astronomy. Priests and scribes marked the movements of planets on clay tablets, year after year, century after century. They built ziggurats not only as temples, but as observatories, climbing high to see the sky more clearly. From their patient notes came calendars, predictions of eclipses, and the ability to align harvests with the heavens. The cosmos became a teacher, and science was born from stillness. In Egypt, physicians studied the body with the same calm. They observed wounds, illnesses, fevers. They wrote papyri filled with remedies, herbs, oils, surgeries. Their wisdom was imperfect, but it was grounded in careful attention, in watching cause and effect. They believed that balance in the body mirrored balance in the cosmos. Health itself was harmony. In India, sages studied numbers and shapes with quiet curiosity. From their meditations on patterns came mathematics. The concept of zero, infinite in meaning yet simple in form. Astronomy flourished too, with calculations of eclipses and planetary motions accurate beyond their tools. Their science was not separated from spirit. It was born from the same calm observation that guided their philosophy. In China, medicine and astronomy walked hand in hand. The body was seen as a small universe, its organs flowing like rivers, its energy rising and falling like the seasons. Acupuncture, herbs, breathing practices, all were developed through centuries of serene study. Observing not with haste, but with patience, generation after generation. And in Greece, thinkers like Pythagoras, Hippocrates, and Aristotle turned calm reflection into systematic study. Pythagoras listened not only to numbers, but to the harmony of strings on a lyre. From music, he saw mathematics. From mathematics, he saw order in the universe. Hippocrates taught that illness had causes in nature, not curses. Aristotle studied plants, animals, stars, and logic, seeing patterns that shaped Western science for centuries. What united all of these was not technology, but temperament. They practiced serenity. They knew that truth reveals itself slowly, like dawn. That rushing blinds the eye, but patience sharpens it. Their science was not conquest over nature, but listening to it. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself among them, tracing the shadow of a sundial across stone. Grinding herbs into powder, noting how one soothes fever while another eases pain. Lifting your gaze to the stars, feeling the hum of order in the cosmos. This is science at its root, calm attention, reverence for detail, curiosity softened by patience. Science as serenity teaches us that knowledge is not born in noise, but in stillness. That the greatest discoveries are not forced, but found. And though centuries have passed, though our instruments have grown vast, the principle remains. The scientist in the laboratory, the doctor at the bedside, the thinker in meditation, all carry the same quiet inheritance. Wisdom begins with noticing. And noticing requires calm. Of all the invisible forces that shape civilizations, none is more powerful, more steady, more silent than time. To master time is to master harvests, rituals, journeys, and dreams. And so, long before clocks ticked on walls, long before seconds were counted by machines, ancient peoples built their own architecture of time. Markers carved in stone, aligned with sun and moon, whispering order into the flow of days. Imagine the earliest farmers watching the sky. The sun rises, the sun sets, but not always in the same place. It drifts north, then south, then back again. The moon grows, glows full, then fades into shadow. The stars themselves wheel slowly across the seasons. These patterns are not noise. They are messages. And humanity, with patient eyes, began to listen. In Mesopotamia, priests stood atop ziggurats, charting the movements of sun, moon, and stars. They recorded eclipses, solstices, and equinoxes on clay tablets. From their calm observation came the first calendars. Planting time, harvest time, festival time. The chaos of seasons became rhythm, life became predictable, society became steady. In Egypt, the Nile itself was a clock. Each year, its floodwaters rose, bringing fertile soil. Priests learned to predict its arrival by watching the star Sirius rise before dawn. That single star became the herald of renewal. Their calendar of 365 days, aligned with the river and the sky, became the foundation of agriculture, law, and ritual. Even their temples were aligned with the sun's passage, shafts of light falling into inner sanctuaries at precise times of the year. Architecture itself became a calendar in stone. In Stonehenge on the plains of Britain, great stones were raised in circles. Their purpose still debated, yet their alignment with solstices is undeniable. On the longest day, the sun rises perfectly over the heel stone. Was it a temple, a calendar, a place of ritual? Perhaps all three. For here, the builders had turned landscape into a clock, carving time itself into earth and sky. In India, Vedic priests studied the heavens, aligning rituals with lunar and solar cycles. Observatories rose later, with instruments vast as monuments, carved arcs and towers designed to measure shadows, to track celestial paths with precision. These were not mere tools. They were temples of time. In China, timekeeping became a philosophy of harmony. The calendar was not only practical, but moral. A ruler proved his virtue by aligning his reign with heaven's order. Festivals, harvests, and governance all followed the rhythm of cosmic balance. Even music was tuned to the cycles of the year, linking sound, season, and society. And in the Americas, the Mayans built pyramids that tracked the sun's march. Their calendars, astonishing in accuracy, measured not only years but cycles far beyond human lifespan. For them, time itself was sacred, a wheel turning endlessly, carrying creation and destruction in eternal balance. Time was not measured only in days. It was woven into rituals. Into the ringing of bells at dawn, the lighting of lamps at dusk, the offering of incense at appointed hours. For ordinary people, this structure gave comfort. They knew when to plant, when to harvest, when to rest, when to celebrate. Their lives, once fragile against the wildness of nature, became steadier, calmer, anchored by the architecture of time. Close your eyes. Imagine standing before one of these ancient markers. The sun rising perfectly through a stone arch, the shadow of a pillar sliding along carved lines, the stars aligning with temple walls. You feel the vastness of time pressing around you, but also its order. You are not adrift in chaos. You are part of a pattern, steady, eternal, serene. The architecture of time was one of humanity's first great wisdoms. It taught that patience is power, that observation brings harmony, that the universe itself offers rhythm if we listen. And though today we live by clocks and seconds, the truth remains the same. We still long for rhythm, for order, for the calm certainty that tomorrow will come, that seasons will turn, that our lives move within a greater pattern. The ancients built their calendars not only to measure time, but to remind us that time itself is sacred. If time was the rhythm of civilization, then knowledge was its memory. And memory, fragile as smoke, needed guardians. Across the ancient world, men and women devoted their lives to preserving wisdom. They built libraries, copied scrolls, taught students, recited verses. They stood as bridges between past and future, ensuring that what had been learned would not be lost. Imagine walking into Alexandria's great library. Vast halls, shelves upon shelves filled with scrolls gathered from every corner of the known world. Greek philosophy, Egyptian medicine, Indian mathematics, Babylonian astronomy. All gathered under one roof. Scholars walked those halls in silence, reading by lamplight, copying by hand, debating in whispers. They knew they were not simply preserving words. They were preserving civilization itself. Though flames eventually consumed much of that library, its spirit lived on, for its idea, the gathering of knowledge across borders, is still with us in every university, every archive, every library today. In India, the monastery university of Nalanda stood as a beacon of learning for centuries. Thousands of students, monks, and scholars studied there. Mathematics, medicine, astronomy, philosophy. Taught in cloisters, debated in courtyards, written in manuscripts stored with care. Pilgrims from China journeyed thousands of miles to learn there, carrying back books that would shape their own lands. Nalanda was not only a school. It was a sanctuary of thought, its guardians humble monks with scrolls in hand, their devotion not to conquest, but to wisdom. In China, imperial libraries collected texts with painstaking care. Scholars were appointed as custodians of classics, ensuring that the teachings of Confucius, the Taoists, the historians were never forgotten. Dynasties rose and fell, wars raged, yet scribes quietly copied, recited, taught. Their ink was more enduring than steel. Their devotion more powerful than armies. In the Islamic world, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad became another great sanctuary. Greek works translated into Arabic, Persian texts preserved, Indian mathematics expanded. Scholars there were guardians, but also translators, opening wisdom to new languages, new minds. They were not only protecting knowledge, they were letting it breathe, change, live again. From them came algebra, refined astronomy, advances in medicine. Gifts carried forward into Europe, fueling the Renaissance. In Africa, the city of Timbuktu housed thousands of manuscripts in private libraries. Texts on law, science, poetry, and faith. Families passed them down as treasures, guarded against time and conquest alike. Their guardians were not kings, but ordinary scholars, scribes, teachers. People who believed that to protect a book was to protect a soul. And in Europe, monasteries became havens of preservation during centuries of turmoil. Monks bent over desks, copying ancient texts line by line. Hours upon hours, years upon years, their quiet labor saved wisdom that might otherwise have vanished forever. In candlelight and silence, they became invisible guardians of civilization's memory. Guardianship was not always grand. Sometimes it was as simple as a mother telling her child a story, an elder reciting genealogy, a poet memorizing verses and passing them along. Oral traditions were libraries too, carried not on shelves but in memory. And in this way, cultures without scrolls still guarded wisdom. In voice, in ritual, in story. Close your eyes. Imagine walking into one of these sanctuaries of knowledge. The air is heavy with the smell of parchment, ink, and wax. Silence hums like music. A scholar looks up, smiles faintly, then returns to his work. His hand moves slowly across the page, copying word after word, as if each were sacred. He does not know you. He will never know the future generations who will read his words. Yet still he writes. For he is a guardian, and that is enough. The guardians of knowledge remind us that wisdom is never guaranteed to survive. It is fragile, always at risk. But when cared for, it can endure across millennia. We owe to them the philosophies we study, the laws we follow, the sciences we practice. Without them, entire civilizations would be silent. Their quiet labor was one of the greatest gifts humanity has ever received. For they gave us not only knowledge, but memory. And memory is what allows us to be more than scattered moments. It is what allows us to be a story. Not all wisdom endures in the open. Some ideas, once bright as fire, fall silent. They slip into shadows, buried beneath dust, locked away in ruins, forgotten by tongues that once spoke them. But forgotten does not mean gone. For wisdom often sleeps, waiting for the right moment, the right hands, the right hearts to awaken it again. History is full of these slumbers. In Greece, philosophers debated the nature of atoms, the geometry of shapes, the orbit of planets. Yet when empires fell and centuries shifted, much of their thought was lost to Europe. Scrolls burned, libraries crumbled, knowledge scattered. For a time, it seemed as though those voices had vanished. Yet in the golden courts of Baghdad, scholars translated and preserved them. And centuries later, those same words returned to Europe, fueling the Renaissance, awakening minds to questions that had been asked long before. In India, great Buddhist universities like Nalanda flourished for centuries. Thousands of texts copied, studied, debated. But invasions and fire consumed them. Entire libraries gone in days, wisdom scattered to the winds. Yet monks had carried some manuscripts with them, tucked in bundles, hidden in mountain caves. In Tibet, in China, those voices survived, sleeping quietly until they could be read again. In Egypt, the secrets of hieroglyphs fell silent for almost 2,000 years. The language carved in temples and tombs became unreadable. Even the Egyptians of later dynasties forgot what their ancestors had written. Only with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, and the patient work of modern scholars, was that voice awakened again. Suddenly, the walls of temples spoke once more, and forgotten prayers returned to the world. In the Americas, entire civilizations fell silent. The knowledge of Mayan astronomy, of Incan engineering, of Aztec philosophy was buried under conquest. But fragments endured in codices, in oral traditions, in the ruins of temples aligned with the stars. Slowly, carefully, scholars and descendants have pieced them together, awakening voices once silenced. Ideas sometimes sleep not because of fire or conquest, but because humanity moves too quickly. We rush toward novelty, leaving the old behind. For centuries, ancient medicine or philosophy was dismissed, only to be rediscovered when the world grew weary of haste. Even now, mindfulness, meditation, herbal medicine, wisdoms thousands of years old, return to us as if they were new, though they never truly left. Close your eyes. Imagine a library in ruins. Shelves broken, scrolls scattered, dust thick in the air. You kneel, lift one fragile scrap. The ink is faint, the letters unfamiliar. You cannot read it, yet you know it carries a voice, a life, a thought. It is sleeping, waiting, and you are its guardian now. The sleep of forgotten ideas reminds us of something humbling. Wisdom is fragile. It can be lost in a single fire, buried in a single ruin, silenced in a single lifetime. But it also reminds us of something hopeful. Wisdom endures, even in silence. It hides in memory, in ruins, in fragments, in whispers. And when it returns, it does not come empty. It comes with new meaning, ready to shape the world again. Perhaps the ideas we most need today are already here, waiting in silence. Perhaps they are sleeping in old books, in old temples, in traditions passed quietly from elder to child. And perhaps, if we listen with patience, we will awaken them again. Wisdom changes its clothing, but never its essence. Once, it was carved into stone tablets, then inked onto scrolls of papyrus, then bound in parchment, copied patiently by candlelight. Now it flows in circuits and screens, in the endless web of digital connections we call the modern world. From scrolls to silicon, the journey of wisdom has never ceased. It only changes the vessel, never the flame. Think of the ideas born in the ancient world, still guiding us today. The Stoics of Greece and Rome spoke of controlling what lies within and accepting what lies beyond. Their writings, once read in scrolls by emperors and slaves alike, now appear in psychology textbooks, in therapy rooms, in quiet reflections of those seeking peace in busy lives. Cognitive behavioral therapy, as modern science names it, carries Stoic roots. The same calm discipline, the same gentle reminder that thoughts can shape experience, that serenity is a choice. The teachings of Confucius in China, once memorized by students with brushes in hand, now shape modern governance and leadership. His belief in order, respect, and moral example echoes in offices, in classrooms, in policies that stress harmony over division. His wisdom, once spoken softly in courtyards, now flows through universities and international dialogue. The laws of Rome, carved first into the 12 tables, survive in our legal codes. Words about contracts, property, rights, now printed in vast law books, argued in courtrooms, codified in constitutions. From stone to parchment, to press, to digital record, Roman law still lives. Every time a judge rules, every time a citizen claims their rights, the echo of Rome is there. The concept of zero from India, once a humble circle in ancient manuscripts, now forms the foundation of modern technology. Without it, there would be no computers, no algorithms, no silicon chips. Every line of code, every digital message, every search on the web is built upon that quiet ancient discovery. A nothing that became everything. The medicine of Egypt, Greece, China, and India, once herbs in clay jars, once observations whispered by healers, now fills pharmacies, hospitals, and research centers. Modern science refines, tests, expands. But at its root, it carries the same impulse: to study the body with care, to heal with balance, to preserve life through knowledge. And even philosophies of spirit, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, echo in the modern world's ethical debates, its search for meaning, its hunger for connection. Ancient prayers become modern meditations. Ancient parables become guides for leadership, for justice, for compassion. The forms shift, the essence remains. Close your eyes. Picture a scroll unfurled upon a table, its letters dark against pale fibers. Now imagine that same wisdom glowing on a screen in your hand. The vessel has changed, but the words still whisper the same truths. Be calm. Seek balance. Live with justice. Remember compassion. From scrolls to silicon, wisdom has crossed fires, wars, collapses, and revolutions. It has slept and awakened, been forgotten and reborn. Yet it endures, because humanity endures. Because we hunger not only for wealth or power, but for guidance, for meaning, for the calm that helps us face the storms of life. The ancients could not imagine microchips, satellites, global networks. But they would understand the questions we still ask. How do we live? How do we find peace? How do we create a just society? They asked them too. They wrote them in stone, sang them in chants, carried them in scrolls. And we, though we now ask them in digital light, are still part of the same conversation. From scrolls to silicon, wisdom has never left us. It has only changed its language, waiting for us to listen. When people think of history, they often picture armies. Banners raised, swords flashing, the noise of conquest. But beneath the noise, there has always been something quieter, steadier, more enduring. The exchange of knowledge. Not through war, but through conversation. Not through destruction, but through sharing. This was the true revolution of the ancient world, a revolution of minds, not weapons. Imagine a caravanserai at dusk. Camels kneel, fires are lit, travelers gather in the courtyard. Some trade coins for silk, others bargain for spices. But beyond the marketplace, something else is exchanged. A story from India about medicine. A verse from Persia about stars. A philosophy from China about harmony. These ideas cross borders more easily than soldiers. And once shared, they cannot be taken back. They ripple outward, reshaping every land they touch. In Mesopotamia, the Babylonians studied the heavens. Their charts of planets and eclipses traveled westward into Greece, where philosophers expanded them into theories of the cosmos. That same knowledge, preserved and carried eastward, would later fuel astronomy in Persia, in India, in China. A single observation of the sky became a shared inheritance of humanity. In India, mathematicians discovered the concept of zero, and developed systems of numbers that traveled first into the Islamic world, then into Europe. What began as quiet marks on a palm leaf manuscript became the foundation of algebra, of geometry, of all modern science. A gift not seized in war, but offered in exchange. In China, the secret of paper slipped beyond its borders. Carried by travelers into the Islamic world, where scholars quickly recognized its power. From there, it reached Europe, where the printing press turned this once fragile craft into a revolution of knowledge. The calm act of writing became a force that reshaped the world. In the Islamic Golden Age, scholars translated, preserved, and expanded upon Greek philosophy, Indian mathematics, Persian medicine. They built observatories, hospitals, libraries. Then, when their texts were carried into Europe, they sparked the Renaissance. The quiet conversations of Baghdad, Cordoba, and Damascus became the foundation for the modern age. In Africa, wisdom flowed through oral traditions as well as manuscripts. The libraries of Timbuktu preserved thousands of works on law, science, poetry. But just as vital were the griots, storytellers who carried history, values, and memory through generations. When travelers met them, they carried away more than goods. They carried away perspectives, songs, and truths. And in the Americas, civilizations exchanged farming methods, astronomical observations, and philosophies across their own networks. The Mayans' complex calendars, the Incas' terraced agriculture, the Aztecs' intricate rituals of balance. Though oceans separated them from Eurasia, they too built quiet webs of exchange. War destroys, but exchange creates. And time after time, history shows us that what outlasts empires is not conquest, but knowledge shared. The swords of Alexander dulled, but the Greek texts he carried eastward endured. The armies of Rome crumbled, but Roman law still shapes us. The Mongols burned cities, but also opened roads that allowed ideas to flow faster than ever before. Close your eyes. Imagine two strangers meeting at the edge of a desert. They do not speak the same language, but they smile. One points to the sky, tracing the movement of stars. The other nods, adds his own knowledge, and together they weave a picture larger than either could see alone. That is the quiet revolution. A revolution of peace, of minds meeting, of wisdom multiplying. This quiet revolution reminds us that civilization's greatest progress does not come from domination, but from dialogue. Not from swords, but from scrolls. Not from the cry of war, but from the whisper of ideas shared beneath the stars. And even now, in our modern age of wires and screens, the same truth holds. The exchanges that endure are not the battles, but the conversations. Not the taking, but the giving. Not the destruction, but the sharing. The true revolution of humanity has always been quiet. And it has always been the exchange of wisdom. If the quiet revolution of exchange was the breath of civilization, then humility was its anchor. For the ancients knew a truth we often forget, that wisdom without humility becomes pride, and pride blinds the eyes, deafens the ears, and topples empires. Again and again, across continents, voices rose to remind humanity of its smallness. And its strength in knowing that smallness. In Greece, the Delphic oracle carved 3 words into stone: know thyself. It was not a command to seek glory, but to recognize limits. To understand weakness as well as strength. Socrates, walking the streets of Athens, confessed that the only thing he knew was that he knew nothing. And in that admission lay his greatness. For to be humble before truth is to be open to learning. In China, Confucius spoke of the gentleman who does not boast, who does not flaunt, but leads through quiet example. He taught that arrogance destroys harmony, while humility nourishes it. That a ruler who listens is stronger than one who shouts. The Taoists too, with their images of water and bamboo, taught humility. Water flows low, bamboo bends in the wind. And yet, it is the low and the bending that endure. In India, humility was woven into the very heart of philosophy. The Buddha walked barefoot, bowl in hand, teaching that pride was a root of suffering. The Vedas spoke of dharma, of duty performed not for glory but for balance. Even kings were reminded that they were servants of cosmic order, not masters of it. In Rome, Marcus Aurelius, emperor of vast lands, wrote in his journals not of conquest but of restraint, reminding himself each morning to meet arrogance with calm, anger with patience, insults with silence. His empire stretched from Britain to Egypt, yet he spoke to himself as a student, not a god. His humility, written in the margins of history, still guides leaders today. In Persia, Zoroastrian teaching reminded its followers that the battle between truth and falsehood was larger than any one person. Each human was but a participant in a cosmic struggle. Arrogance had no place where eternity was concerned. Humility alone gave meaning to action. And in the Hebrew tradition, prophets warned kings who grew proud. Do not forget the widow, the orphan, the stranger, they cried. For humility was not only a virtue, but a command. To remember that greatness is measured not in palaces, but in kindness. Again and again, civilizations that forgot humility fell. Pharaohs who claimed to be gods, emperors who demanded worship, rulers who thought themselves eternal. Their statues crumble, their cities sink into dust. Yet the humble words of sages, carved in small scrolls, whispered in quiet halls, remain. Close your eyes. Imagine a mighty ruler standing before a mirror of polished bronze. He sees his face, proud, adorned with crown and jewels. But behind him stands a philosopher, or a monk, or a prophet, whispering, "Remember, you are dust. Remember, you are servant. Remember, the river flows long after you are gone." The humility of ancient wisdom reminds us that strength is not in dominance, but in restraint. That greatness is not in shouting, but in listening. That the wisest are those who bow before truth, who accept their limits, who walk gently on the earth. And perhaps this is why their words endure. For arrogance dies with the man who holds it. But humility lives on, passed from teacher to student, from elder to child, from age to age. In their humility, the ancients left us a gift. A reminder that we, too, are small. But in that smallness lies connection, and in connection lies strength. The ancients spoke in whispers, but their voices reach us still. Not as relics of a world long gone, but as companions for the world we now inhabit. For the challenges we face today, vast, urgent, overwhelming, are not entirely new. They are echoes of questions asked thousands of years ago. And if we are willing to pause, to listen, we may find that the wisdom of the past still carries light for the future. Consider our restless world. A planet rushing faster each year, its skies filled with planes, its networks humming with data, its cities glowing through the night. Yet in that brightness, we grow weary. Disconnected, divided, uncertain. And still, the ancient voices whisper, "Slow down. Breathe. Listen." When we face climate change, we might think it a new crisis. Yet the ancients lived close to nature, and their philosophies taught harmony with earth. Daoist sages compared humanity to rivers and trees, urging balance rather than dominance. Indian texts spoke of dharma, the duty to live in alignment with the cycles of the world. Egyptian priests studied the Nile's floods, understanding that survival meant respecting, not conquering, the river. Their wisdom teaches us that to endure, we must not fight against nature, but walk with it. When we face division among peoples, we might imagine our conflicts as unique. Yet the ancients, too, wrestled with diversity, with difference, with the struggle to belong. The Silk Road carried not only goods but cultures, and it endured only because strangers learned to trust one another, to share food, to exchange ideas. Confucius taught respect within families as the seed of respect across society. The Buddha taught compassion for all beings, no matter their status. Stoics taught that all humans shared the same spark of reason, that citizenship extended to the world itself. Their wisdom reminds us that unity is not uniformity. It is harmony in difference, trust built across divides. When we face restlessness of mind, caught in constant noise, the ancients offer again their calm. The Stoics remind us that the storms of the world do not rule the soul unless we allow them. The Buddhists remind us that breath itself can be an anchor. The Vedic chants, the Daoist verses, the meditations of philosophers all point to the same truth, that peace is not found in escape, but in awareness. Even in questions of governance and justice, the ancients still guide us. Roman law whispers in our courts, Hammurabi's codes echo in our expectations of fairness. Prophets still challenge us to care for the widow, the orphan, the stranger. Their reminder is timeless. Power without justice crumbles, but justice endures. Close your eyes. Imagine the modern world as a vast city of glass and steel. Towers rise, lights blaze, voices rush. Yet beneath its streets lies an ancient foundation. Stones carved by forgotten hands, carrying the weight of centuries. You walk there at night, and you feel them. The calm of those who lived before, the guidance of those who endured storms greater than ours. You realize you are not alone. You never were. Awakening the future does not mean inventing everything anew. It means remembering. Remembering that humanity has walked through drought and flood, through war and peace, through despair and renewal. And always, always, it has turned to wisdom for light. The ancients remind us, the answers are not always in what is new, but in what is enduring. Patience, compassion, justice, balance, humility. These are not old virtues. They are timeless virtues. And if we awaken them in ourselves, we may yet shape a future that is calm, steady, and kind. The past does not chain us. It guides us. The future does not frighten us. It invites us. And between them, we walk with the wisdom of ages, steady as stars, calm as breath. If we look back across the centuries, across the ruins of empires and the fading ink of scrolls, what we see is not fragments but a thread. A thread that runs unbroken through the lives of farmers and kings, sages and soldiers, monks and merchants. A thread woven from questions, from stories, from discoveries, from acts of kindness and courage. This thread is wisdom itself, and it binds humanity together across time. It is easy to believe that we stand apart from the ancients, that our world of satellites and silicon is utterly different from their world of temples and torches. But listen closely, and you will hear their voices in ours. Their questions are our questions. Their fears are our fears. Their hopes are our hopes. The thread does not snap when centuries pass. It stretches, it weaves, it holds. Consider the thread of law. Carved into stone by Hammurabi, whispered in temples of Egypt, codified in Rome. That same thread runs into the Magna Carta, into constitutions, into the rights we claim today. The words change, the forms evolve, but the essence remains. Humanity seeking fairness, seeking balance, seeking order amid chaos. Consider the thread of philosophy. Socrates asking what is virtue, the Buddha teaching the end of suffering, Confucius reminding us of harmony, Laozi of flow. Their wisdom became foundations upon which later minds built. From them we inherited psychology, governance, ethics, mindfulness. We still read their words, still debate their ideas, still rest our restless hearts upon their calm. Consider the thread of science. Babylonian stargazers marking the planets, Egyptian healers tending wounds, Indian mathematicians shaping numbers, Chinese astronomers building instruments of stone. That same thread leads to telescopes pointed at distant galaxies, to medicines that heal across the globe, to numbers flowing through circuits of modern computers. The language of science has grown vast, but its origin was always the same, the patient act of noticing. Consider the thread of stories. The epics of Gilgamesh and Homer, the parables of prophets, the myths of gods and heroes, the chants of griots in Africa, the songs of Mayan priests. That same thread winds into novels, films, poems, songs sung across radios and screens. For humanity has always told itself stories, not only to entertain, but to remember who we are. This timeless thread does not belong to one culture, one nation, one age. It belongs to all. Each generation adds its own fibers, weaving into the fabric of the whole. Sometimes the colors are bright with discovery, sometimes dark with struggle. But the fabric holds. Close your eyes. Picture it now. A great tapestry stretching endlessly. At one end, hands of the ancients weaving, brown hands, pale hands, weathered hands, delicate hands. At the other, your hands, my hands, the hands of children not yet born. All weaving into the same cloth. Each thread matters. Each touch adds strength. The thread teaches us humility, reminding us that we are not the first to ask, not the last to wonder. It teaches us connection, reminding us that no thought, no act, no life is truly isolated. It teaches us patience, reminding us that wisdom does not bloom in a season, but across centuries. And perhaps, most of all, the timeless thread teaches us calm. For though kingdoms rise and fall, though technologies transform, though storms shake the earth, the thread remains steady. It is not loud. It is not fragile. It is quiet and enduring. It is the whisper beneath history, carrying us forward. Tonight, as you rest, you are part of that thread. Your thoughts, your kindness, your small acts of wisdom add to it. You are not separate from the ancients, you are their continuation. Their calm breath flows into yours. Their questions echo in your mind. Their thread passes through your hands. And when tomorrow comes, the thread continues. Weaving on, stretching forward, binding past and future in one eternal fabric. And now, dear listener, our journey through ancient wisdom draws to its gentle close. We have walked together through fields where the first seeds of thought were planted. We have stood before pyramids and aqueducts where stone whispered of order. We have sat in the presence of teachers, Confucius, the Buddha, Socrates, Laozi, their voices still steady, still clear. We have wandered through libraries and ruins, hearing the guardians of knowledge, watching as forgotten ideas slipped into silence and then awoke again. We have seen scrolls give way to silicon, rituals to science, myths to philosophy, and yet, through it all, one thread endured. The timeless thread of wisdom. Imagine now that we sit in a quiet archive. The lamps glow softly, casting warm light upon rows of scrolls, books, and tablets. Dust drifts slowly in the air, as if time itself were moving in silence. You run your hand along the shelves, feeling the texture of leather bindings, papyrus fibers, brittle parchment. Each one is a voice, a life, a gift carried forward. You unroll a scroll. The ink is faded, but the words still shine. Be just. Be humble. Be patient. Another book whispers, seek balance. Seek harmony. Seek compassion. Another stone tablet murmurs, remember who you are. Remember where you belong. Remember the order of the world. The voices are soft now, but they do not vanish. They settle into you, into your breath, into your resting heart. They have walked with humanity for thousands of years, and tonight they walk with you. Close your eyes. Feel the calm. You are not separate from this great story. You are part of it. Just as farmers once looked to the sky for guidance, just as philosophers once sat beneath trees in meditation, just as rulers once sought fairness in law, you too are a traveler in this endless journey. The archive grows still. The scrolls close. The lamps flicker lower. The voices of the ancients fade into quiet. Yet their wisdom remains, not loud, not urgent, but calm. Patient. Enduring. And as you lie here, the night holds you like an unseen library. Your breath rises and falls like the turning of pages. Your body sinks like stone foundations into the earth. Your thoughts drift like whispers through the halls of memory. You are safe. You are steady. You are part of the thread that stretches across time. Let the noise of the day fall away now. Let the questions of tomorrow wait. Tonight, the ancients have offered their calm, and now you may rest in it. The night deepens. The voices soften. The fire burns low. And you drift. Gently, quietly, peacefully, into sleep.